Welcome to Elixir Wizards, a podcast brought to you by Smart Logic, a custom web and mobile development shop based out of Baltimore, Maryland. My name is Justice Eapen, and I am joined by my co-host, Eric Ostrich, and this is the Betweenisode. We're live. I'm also joined by our special guest, Saša Jurić. How you doing, Saša?
Yeah, fine. Thank you very much. How about you?
Doing great. Thank you so much for joining us for our first ever live stream. Coronavirus has got everybody locked down in quarantine. And where are you? And tell us about the situation where you are.
So I'm in Zagreb, Croatia. It's, I guess, pretty much the same as in the rest of the world. So we are mostly staying at home, limited movements, shops are open, only until 5 p.m., stuff like that. Yeah, corona-wise, we're doing actually fine. Our curve is linear and small so far, so that's a good thing. We had some pretty shitty earthquake 2 weeks ago, so the city center has suffered significant damage, so that kind of adds to this whole situation. But, we're keeping our spirits high and doing fine so far. Yeah.
I was saying that that's probably pretty scary because Croatia is right next to Italy, and Italy is getting hit really, really hard, northern Italy especially. So really glad that you're safe and sound. How are you using your time? You must have some extra time being stuck at home all day, every day for the indefinite future. How are you passing the time?
Yeah, so before all of this happened, let's say maybe what we are in this mode 3 weeks ago, and the week before that, it was pretty clear that we're going to enter this social distancing and minimal outside life. And, I was thinking, now I'm going to do a bunch of open source projects and whatnot. Now I'm going to have so much time. And it didn't really turn out that way. So I guess for the first 2 weeks, I was just frantically refreshing the news and, watching the counts and whatnot. And so I'm only just kind of getting into, I don't want to call it normal, but some, reasonable tempo. And I've seen it, many people mention on Twitter, now a bunch of the world is working remotely. This is really not a normal remote or work from home mode, because it's really, the situation is crazy. So yeah, anyway, I've been playing a little bit of guitar. Me and my wife have been watching some shows and movies and whatnot. And yeah, that's basically it. And now I'm hoping I'm finally going to pick up those open source projects I've been working on.
Yeah, speaking of the remote work, I've got to ask, the green screen behind you, is that inspired by the by Zoom?
Oh,
Zoom meetings?
No, this is the real green screen. Yeah, I was actually gonna stream from my proper working place, but my wife is in some super marathon debugging session with her colleagues. So I just went to, this is our bedroom, and so I just parked myself here.
Very cool. So I'm curious about this earthquake. I mean, so we've gotten some earthquakes over here in the United States as well in the recent past. The most recent, there's locusts in Africa. The other thing that I've heard recently is that we've got some giant Asian hornets invading the United States. I mean, are these the end times?
Yeah, sounds like it, right? It definitely sounds like it.
How do you stay positive? I mean, what are you doing to cope with all this? And what do you encourage other people to do, I suppose?
Yeah, that's kind of hard. Everyone has their own mechanisms, So, I got to say, this isn't the worst thing that I have seen in my life. So 30 years ago, we had a war here in Croatia, the real stuff with guns and bombs and whatnot. So that was definitely, at least at this point, it seemed it was much more difficult than this stage here. But anyway, even back then and now, I would just say, do some stuff to distract you, whether it's watching some brainwash movie or whatnot, or doing some hobby, reading a book, or just doing some programming, coding, or whatever other stuff that you want to do. I think it just keeps your mind off of things. You don't frantically refresh the page and watching the disease count and whatnot. And so it kind of keeps you focused. That's sort of how I try to do it. Yeah.
I definitely had the just scrolling through Twitter for 12 hours a day for the first few weeks. And that was partially I was on paternity leave because we just had our son, and so I had copious amounts of free time, and then this started. It's was my first few weeks. It's gotta stop this. Thank you.
Congratulations then. Yeah. Did it happen after we chatted last time?
Yeah, it was right after, or actually at Lone Star. I got a call from my wife at 4:30 in the morning, and she was like, "We're having a baby today. Get home."
Wow, that's crazy. Yes, I mean it's crazy to think that we had our talk, we recorded our talk 2 months ago, less than 2 months ago, I believe. You probably have the exact date. The world is
Yeah.
completely different since then.
That is a fascinating observation, actually. The world is completely different. How long do you think it's going to last? I mean, do you think we're going to be here in quarantine till like for 3 months? Do you think that like we're talking a year to 18 months? Is this just the beginning of like us becoming sort of mole people?
Yeah, well, I hope it's not. I have absolutely no clue. Obviously, I'm just like a noob in the area, or I have zero knowledge in the area. We are, of course, kind of hoping that it will maybe, well, what's the word? It will reduce until the summer, but then not really go away. And basically, it seems that we're all waiting for some sort of either vaccine or magical cure or something like that. So probably a year or so. I mean, I have some events scheduled for June, which I'm like 100% certain will not happen. I have some events scheduled for after the summer, and I'm not really sure that even those are going to happen. Well, at least not in like real life form. We're going to see whether people will be doing some virtual conferencing or whatnot. But yeah, we probably have like some fun times ahead of us.
Mm-hmm. And with your work, you've been remote at your company. Is your company full remote? So has this been a pretty easy transition for them, or is some of the team new to remote working?
So definitely they allowed and even encouraged working from home, but still a bulk of the people were actually going to the office because they wanted to. Now, obviously, everyone is working from home. And yeah, it's been a little bit a transitioning phase, but they're doing fine. They're working very hard actually, because Very Big Things is working in some about a lot of projects they've been working on were tele something like telehealth, telemedicine, tele-education and stuff like that. And now this is becoming more relevant than ever. So actually, there's more work for Very Big Things, which is, I mean, a good thing, obviously.
So that's a great point that I'm curious to follow up on, which is, how has this affected your business? So many people have been economically devastated by this thing. I'm curious, it seems like maybe the software business maybe has been not as impacted as badly as, like the hospitality industry, for example. What's been Very Big Things' experience of it?
Yeah, Very Big Things is doing so far pretty good. And yeah, we had a meeting. There are no layoffs. There are no cuts or stuff like that. So obviously we have to see what's going to happen because, no one is isolated in this world. Everything depends on everyone else. So ultimately, if the economy goes down for some, it goes down for everyone, right? But we are definitely, I would say, in a place of privilege, so to speak, that we can actually work do our job, from home, from the comfort of our home and whatnot, and make some decent money of it. I've seen all over the Twitter, and it's definitely worrying that even people in our industry are, getting laid off. So, I mean, I guess I have no clue, but I wonder what it is for people who have been working in the hospitality industry, like Airbnb, for example. So it's definitely worrying, but I guess you got to solve one problem at a time, right? So we got to survive this thing first, then we're gonna think about the economy, because if we're all dead, then there's no economy anyway.
You're right on about that. Yeah. And we were hoping to, well, so I guess I'll ask you, since we were just talking about work from home, like you've worked from home for a long time. You've worked remotely for a long time. Tell us about how you started working from home and like the most important things that you've learned working from home, things that might be useful to people who are new to it in the recent weeks.
Yeah, so I started working 6 years ago when I basically switched from an in-office job to a company from Germany. So it was for the first month or so, it was kind of strange for me because, there was no one else around and kind of, I felt isolated. But after that, I kind of gotten used to it. And now I can't see myself really going to the office anymore. So yeah, there are, basic tricks. You got to still follow your routine. That's what everyone says. So you basically get out of bed early in the morning. I get out like 6 a.m. or something like that. Me and my wife, we have make some nice breakfast, and then everyone goes to their table. Yeah, I try to then, try to work as much as I can so I can have free time after, say, 5 or 6 p.m. or something like that. Maybe in between, I will have a short power nap. Back when things were working after lunch, I would go out. There's like a small coffee shop here and go out and grab some coffee, just to be between real people for a change. One cool thing that we did at Aircloak, and this is something I can recommend, is we had random coffee chats, like 5-minute chats, remote chats. So you would have like on Slack the bot, which pairs the random two people, and then you're supposed to have at least 5 minutes non-technical discussion, and that was pretty cool because I was working with that team for, I think, almost a year before we actually got to hang out. So yeah, and I still felt that I knew them already, because of all these daily chats. So this is one cool thing. And, as many people say, don't work in your pajamas and stuff like that. It kind of keeps you in the, momentum.
Yeah. I'm wearing my marathon shirt because I wanted to remind everyone this is a marathon, not a sprint. It's also just the ugliest shirt of all time. So we've got one more question for you, Sasha, before we let you go. This is actually from the audience. Todd is asking, what do you think the future is for online meetups and conferences? Do you think that they will stick around once this thing is over?
Yeah, that's really hard to say. I mean, definitely things will become more virtual and maybe they will get more exposure. I think it's pretty cool to have those online events because it gives more opportunity both to speakers and to attendees, right? On the other hand, it's kind of hard to reserve time for a virtual thing. When you're like in there at the event, then there's nothing else to do but to actually watch talks and socialize with people. So I'm hoping that we're going to have both, in bigger quantities. But yeah, it's kind of hard to tell what exactly will happen. Speaking on that note, like a week ago, we were watching a live virtual concert. So that was pretty cool. Just like you have people coming in the stream, there was like the Postmodern Jukebox, this band. I don't know if you heard of them. There are a bunch of people are playing in there, and just each singer or a performer would join from their own room, and then they would do like three songs, and then there would be another singer, and that was pretty cool. Yeah, so it was actually fun. I could see myself watching this even when everything goes back to normal, so to speak.
All right. And one final thing before we swap off, and looks like Justice is muted, but do you have anything that you want to plug before we send you off?
Okay, so now that I have the chance, I'm going to plug my book and Manning. So Manning is giving away, or not giving away, having a promotion. So all the ebooks are, I think, 50% off, and printed books are at 35% off until May the 30th. So just go to manning.com and, add whatever you want. I recommend Elixir in Action, but they actually have a lot of other great books. So yeah, that's one thing that you can, you can keep yourself busy during this lockdown period. And yeah, otherwise, you may want to check out some of my open source work. I've been doing this working on this library called Boundary. So check that one out. It's, I think, an interesting experiment or a project where I'm trying to kind of bring some properties of umbrella applications into standard projects. So you can have like a regular mixed project, and you can define who is allowed to call someone else. So it basically allows you to organize, to give more order into your projects. And I believe that it's a very interesting thing that could prove to be very useful.
Awesome. Saša Jurić, everybody.
Okay, thank you for having me. And I'm going to look forward to the rest of your guests.
Bruce and Maggie Tate, everybody. Welcome to the show. How are you doing in these strange times?
I'll let you start that one, Maggie.
Okay. I feel like I cry once every day.
Yeah, that's about right. Pretty good otherwise.
Yeah, kind of. But, we get out, we kayak, we bike, we walk, have to get the dog out.
Probably the coolest thing that's happened was we were out on our kayak. So we're on the river, right outside here. And we saw this epic sky battle between a heron and an osprey, which was kind of cool. And then we had to go by where the osprey was, and Maggie was looking up, and she was swinging her paddle around. It was pretty interesting.
So are y'all on the water over there or near it?
Yeah. We're on a river walk, so it's a bunch of miles of trails, which should be great, but they're closed.
They're closed right now, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I am also on the water, but it is a completely undeveloped stretch of water, so I'm basically just looking out at like jungle and bay, and it's pretty nice.
Sounds beautiful.
Yeah. The nature, I think this is a therapy tip for everybody, which is just get out in nature. It makes everything way, way better. If you're able to get out in nature, highly recommend it. Yeah, so that's kind of what we're talking about today is, like coping strategies, work from home tips. We're trying to be encouraging here. I'm sure y'all have been working from home for how long now?
A while.
Long before that. Yeah.
Long time. Gosh, I can't remember the last time that I went into the office every day. Gosh, 20 years ago, maybe? Something like that.
So then you probably have some advice for people who are just getting started in the last few weeks. Anything immediately come to mind is especially important?
Yeah. So a couple of things. So one of the things that Groxio is really about is the idea that as a society, we are asking more and more of our digital workers. And so we're kind of getting carpal tunnel of the brain, if that makes any sense, that we basically ramp people up until they get really good at what they're doing and then basically get more and more productivity out of them. And our brains aren't built to work that way. So we think it's really important to basically take your regular breaks and do things like that, but also take a mental break to work on technical problems that are difficult and different from what you're used to basically get back into the learner's mind. It was really interesting. So, Justice, I know you were emceeing at Lone Star Elixir there. And the Thomases really kind of crystallized our marketing message. We had Zach Thomas, Dave's son, and Dave's talk was okay too. He talked about the Dreyfus learning model where we want to knock ourselves down to beginner and then, advance to an expert. And Dave believes, and I agree, that that's kind of the most critical skill. So, we don't care if it's Groxio or anything else, but we think that working problems outside of your everyday, job is really important. I mean, whether it's a Sudoku or some kind of a puzzle, or, I like learning languages. We're kind of partial to that. Any of that stuff works. And we tell our mentees a lot of the same. How about you, Meg?
I find it's really important to sign off, right? That there should be a clear start to the day and a clear end to the day so that it just doesn't drag on and on and on into the evening hours. So I actually bought myself a Kindle. Well, I know, me too. So I bought myself a Kindle because I couldn't put my phone down, right? So I'm checking Twitter, I'm checking email, and I was like, since I don't have the self-discipline to not, I think I just need a different device in my hand. So I put my phone away at about 10. It's a little late, but, and then I pick up the Kindle and I don't look at anything else again until about 7:30 in the morning. So.
I feel seen. You're speaking directly to me. So I wanted to get a little bit specific here about the skill, the sort of knocking yourself down to the beginner level. This is such a great time for that, not necessarily just in our professional development, but in our personal development. What are you guys working on? Any new hobbies, something like that?
So at Groxio, we're kind of working through Elixir. We just finished with Prologue, and before that, it was a language called Pony. And I think all of those are great languages to kind of teach people interesting things. And one of the things that we tried to do with Elixir, since a lot of our users kind of come from there are people, right? We're trying to stay in places where Elixir developers have blind spots, things like processes, native process abstractions, and streams, and macros, and sigils, and all these little tips that people really kind of need. So in the Elixir space, that's a good one. In Prologue, build a maze, navigate a maze. Gosh, I think that those are great ones. And what about new recipes, Maggie? What are some of those?
I'm cooking. So right now I've got some curry pockets that I've started to cook upstairs. It's got some potato and chickpea and curry paste and coconut stuff. So I'll make some pie crust and wrap those up and bake them. And I'm going to make some naan later today. So I'm getting to work out in the kitchen. And I kind of wish there was some nerves project that could lock my pantry door. Anybody out there?
Yeah. We're COVID-19, I'll tell you.
Those sound amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. The Indian half of me is 100% on board for Indian recipes and food in general. I've been talking to Eric about my bulgogi obsession, which is the current only thing I'm eating while I work on that recipe. What else do we have here? We've got so much to talk about. So first of all, I have been actually following along with Programmer Passport. It's awesome seeing it come out. Bruce, I told you I'm doing some writing on Elixir right now. And so you've been just a tremendous source of inspiration. I was reading your, this isn't from Groxio, but your Designing Elixir Systems with OTP book. It's so beautifully written. Really, really, really helpful. How far along are you in Elixir or Groxio? I think you've got maybe 3 or 4 modules at this point. Is that right for Elixir?
Basically, this particular release, this language is going to have 8 different chapters with it. So we're about to release 5 and 6 of those, and then 7 and 8. So these 2 will be key value, whether it's keywords or maps or structs, and then also we're getting into processes. We don't get to OTP until the next language. We're kind of treating that as a language because it's not a language, but it really is its own paradigm. It has its own kind of patterns and things like that. So, rather than, we just wrote the book. So rather than write a lot for that, we'll write some. We'll write some chapters for it. but kind of take a tack that Designing Elixir Systems didn't. But we will focus that on video and basically applying the patterns in that book to a lot of different pieces. So it ought to be a lot of fun. And for your followers that have not yet jumped on Programming Passport, the ninja move is to get either the monthly or the yearly subscriptions, because the language itself, this is our first one that after we pass, the subscription enrollment period, monthly right now it's $15 and yearly it's a little bit less than that. And you get to keep it forever. So it's definitely the way to buy it.
Also, we have a question from the audience. Where's your dog?
On the floor. Yeah. Let's see if we can.
Yeah.
Yeah, right there. Not a bit. It's funny. When I wrote for Manning, and by the way, Sacha's book is definitely the best Manning book, Elixir book ever written. It might be the best Elixir book ever written. It's my favorite, and probably James's too. But when I wrote for Manning the first time, the first thing that I tried to do is open learning channels and kind of talk about things that are not technology. And my developmental editor, hi Marian, he kind of hated it. He fought me tooth and nail, but we came to an understanding. So the dog on the floor is our attempt to kind of bring some of our personality and our sense of place and home to the recordings.
What's funny is that if she doesn't make it in when Bruce is doing some of the recordings, I find her outside the door laying down, wishing she was inside the room.
And if my headphones are off, she will knock on the door. She will go tap, tap, not scratching, just kind of tap, tap, and just politely.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Wow. Dogs we don't deserve them.
Yeah.
To go back a bit, Todd also brought up if you need someone to do nerves for locking your pantry, maybe you can get John Karstens to sign up for that.
The Royal Bank of John.
Yeah.
Maggie just edited that talk.
Yeah, I did. It was a great talk. We just released it this week.
Yeah, that was fun to watch.
So we want to give you the final word, chance to plug anything you want, any shameless self-promotion. I am a huge fan of the Programmer Passport. Like I said, I've been referring to that as I've been sort of developing my own writing on Elixir and also your other books, Bruce. Anything else that you want to talk about or share with the audience or encourage the audience to do?
Yeah, there are a lot of things happening right now. So the main ones are Programmer Passport is happening. Of course, the book with James. I mean, that's one of the best writing experiences of my life with 7 languages. Just because James is such a brilliant person, and working with him where I could focus on the language and he could focus on the message was just tremendous. But probably the main things are we are really dependent on our conferences. And so if we need to, we will take Gig City Elixir online this year. It's definitely happening. It's October the 23rd and 24th. We already have a lanyard sponsor. So thanks to Get Through. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Really excited to have them on board. And at the same time, Lone Star Elixir is definitely happening. We have Programmer Passport. And also, we are really excited to be offering at our conference training prices, very small team courses. And this is only through coronavirus because it's really not cost effective for us. But we have our live view class it's 2.5 days. It's April 29th through May 1st. And it works out to about $400 a day, which is what conference prices are. And the class goes on for 2.5 days. So if you want to join us, we'd love to have you come to grox.io to sign up.
All right, Bruce and Maggie Tate, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on the Betweenisode. Hello, James. How are you?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Well, I'm so glad to finally meet you. Thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for inviting me.
How are you? First of all, where are you calling us from?
I'm in Oklahoma, so right about in the middle of the U.S.
Perfect. Well, that means you are far away from the worst of this crisis that we are experiencing. How are you holding up during this time?
Good. I actually really enjoy watching you ask everyone that, because when Sasha was like, oh, I had all these grand plans, and then for 2 weeks I just read the news, I was like, oh man, it's not just me. Great.
Yeah. Personally, this week was like the first time I kind of got over the crisis mentality and was able to sort of be like, okay, you know what, this is just life. Life goes on and I've got work to do. So like, I'm over it. It's done for me. How about you? Are you kind of beyond the crisis mentality?
Yeah, I think so. In the first 2 weeks, The one good thing was I was working on a really, really hard thing at work. And so I was just neck deep in that and trying to get through it. So I did have the distraction of work, which is pretty good. But in the off hours, I was definitely just, oh my gosh, reading everything. And now I'm starting to feel like you. I'm like, okay, this will pass, and now I'm getting around to doing some other things, which feels really good.
Yeah,
good. Yeah, I mean, sometimes really, really hard things are good.
Yeah, last night was the first time I programmed on a side project in a month and a half.
Right. Yeah.
So it's
exactly.
definitely good to get back to normal as much as you can.
Agreed.
So we were just talking to Bruce and Maggie Tate, and I kind of want to linger on a subject that came up because, Bruce and Maggie Tate, they run Groxio, which is an educational platform for learning programming languages. And so the audience in the Twitch stream were suggesting languages. And I think the most interesting language to come up is COBOL. Because did you see that article that came out that said, all the states are looking for COBOL programmers to update their HR and unemployment systems?
Yeah, I saw that. Actually, a couple of friends of mine were texting it to me, and they're like, we were talking about it. Yeah.
I mean, what's your take there?
I would say it proves that COBOL has really lasted, right? I can't believe how well it's done over time. I don't know. It's really cool. I think a lot of people talk about, it should be updated and built into new things, which is probably true because it's just been, not because there's anything wrong with COBOL, but because it's been enough time that you could probably learn from the changes that have happened in the world since then, right? And build more modern and on-target things would be my guess. But yeah, it doesn't really inspire me to run out and want to write a lot of COBOL or anything.
Oh, so because that's what I was kind of wondering is anyone going, are any developers out there oh, snap, this is an opportunity. I'm going to go learn COBOL and work on COBOL?
I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe if you need a job,
I won't make any jokes about that.
I know, right? Yeah.
So I'm looking at your site, Graysoft. Talk a little bit about your experience, because a lot of your material here is about Ruby. I'm curious about your experience coming to Elixir.
Oh, yeah. Jeez, coming to Elixir. I was in Ruby forever and ever. I still use Ruby every day, and I love Ruby. But I think Joe Armstrong published his book, Programming Erlang, and I tried it, and it just didn't take. I mean, I played with it for a while and tried it around, but it didn't really take. And I was on this job where a friend of mine that I worked with, Nathan Long, was telling me, the problem is we're trying to do this in Ruby, and this is really an Elixir problem. And I'm like, whatever. And I was ignoring him. And then later I ended up finally sitting down and learning some Elixir and learned that Nathan was exactly right, that it was an Elixir problem and needing to do several things concurrently, of course, and know when things start and stop and finish and stuff like that. So yeah, after that, we started using Elixir on a couple of sites, and I really loved the way it let me write web apps, but stay stateful. Not have to forget everything every time and do 30 queries to remember where I was and stuff like that. So that's what kind of hooked me.
So how long ago was that? How long have you been, are you primarily Elixir? You said you write Ruby every day, so I'm curious what the split is.
Yeah, I work at a company where we have a big Rails monolith, and then we have several services on the side, all written in Elixir. So I use both about equally right now, I would say. But then if I program for fun, I generally do it in Elixir.
Rock and roll. Are you an experienced work from home person? Or is this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've worked from home for coming around on 20 years now. So this is not new to me. My day-to-day hasn't changed that much, except my wife and kid are here more often. Do
you have any tips for people who are either new to working from home or new to having their families at home while they're working from home?
Yeah, so, other people have covered the work from home tips well, so I'll take a different angle to it.
Sure.
If you have young kids, you're dealing with this new thing called homeschooling.
Yes.
Which, of course, isn't new. People know how to do it very well. But I've had a little fun with that as far as working with my daughter and like working on her math and stuff, I've kind of taken a different approach. And I sat down with her and we're learning to ray trace together.
Yes.
Isn't that great? Yeah, ray tracing is so much fun. It teaches you math. It's great. And I'm a total jerk. I could have just given her Blender or something. And instead, I grabbed Pavray, which, if you don't know, is a command line ray tracer that you write scenes in the scene description language. It's literally a programming language that you write these scenes in, and then you feed it to this command line program, and it renders a picture. But it's awesome because you can use like for loops and things like that, to build scenes. It's amazing. We're having a blast.
POV Ray.
Yeah, POV Ray. It stands for Persistence of Vision Ray Tracer.
There's also a pretty great talk of someone doing from Lone Star. Someone did a ray tracing.
Yeah,
Elixir.
I know. Everybody keeps telling me I got to see that talk. I don't think it's online yet. I missed Lone Star because I really wanted to come down. It's in my backyard, and I almost always go down when they're in Texas. But my daughter had a Odyssey of the Mind competition at like 6:45 the next morning. It was like, I'm not driving back all night and then getting up at like 5, So.
That talk was one of the best. It was Jason Stewart. It was one of the best conference talks I've ever seen. One of the best educational experience. Like, it's just one of the best explanations of a complex subject I've ever seen. It was like TED Talk quality, absolutely outrageously good. Super duper looking forward to that coming out.
It'll be the next one that's coming out.
Cool.
Says Maggie. But yeah, so you also wanted to talk about the general solution versus the specific. So
Yeah.
Rant
No,
about that
this
a
is
bit?
your, you're talking about season 4 is going to be like service and application architecture, right? Or something like that. I was reading that post from Jose about the authentication PR that he made for Phoenix. How do you add authentication to your app? And he hits on something great in there, which I think we don't talk about enough. And I would love to hear an episode about, which is, we always say things like, newer programmer might say, oh, I'm going to write my own background processing, whatever, for this app. And then a lot of times more experienced programmers say, careful there, here be dragons. You have to think of this and this and this and this and this and this and this, right? Lots of things. And I think the trick there is that we're talking about two different things. Like the specific solution that meets your app, or the general solution that is like the background processing library for any application, right? And the general solution does have to worry about all those things. But in the specific solution for just your app, you know what you need and what axes you can afford to ignore. And you can do simpler things that way, right?
So this doesn't sound so much like a heuristic, like always opt for this one or the other. It sounds more like a framework for thinking about whether or not to adopt like a library into your application.
Yeah, I think that's totally right. Like, obviously, there are times when you want to make the trade-off, right? Like, I don't think very many of us think, oh, I'll row my own web server and HTTP parser or anything like that. We grab Rails, we grab Phoenix, right? And there's totally times when you should make that trade-off, like security library, if you're doing hashing passwords and stuff like that. Don't write that yourself because it's dangerous, right? You could make a lot of mistakes or things. But a lot of times, I think we too quickly grab the general solution and then accept the massive amount of complexity that comes with it when our specific need could be more easily addressed, right?
Well, you are definitely speaking to something that I think about a lot and care a lot about. And I'd love to have you back on in season 4 to talk more about application and system architecture. Before we let you go, do you have any final plugs or asks for the audience?
I do have a plug, and I'm going to switch and plug Eric's thing, Xventure. It's amazing. I hear people, I've known it existed for a long time, but I've actually just gotten into reading it. And I hear people on Elixir forums say, we need like some big, full Phoenix apps that we can look at and see how they work. We need to see how to do web admin stuff, admin interfaces. We need to see how a real OTP app works. All of these things exist, and it's in one repo called Xventure. It's super cool. If you want good starting points for just reading it, jump into like the game room class. If you've ever played with a MUD, this is like things you know from a MUD, like pickup, drop off, but it's an OTP gen server. These are like call actions on the gen server. It's amazing. Or look at the command system, which uses a very simple macro to parse the incoming commands. It's really well done. I'm having a total blast reading this code.
Well, thanks for that plug.
No, it's worth it.
And thank you for joining us on the Betweenisode, James Edward Gray, everybody.
Absolutely. Thanks, Justice.
The plug, I guess, for that artist, his name is Jesse Link. He is in Pikes Place Market. His studio is there. He does all this great, surreal, sort of street art inspired art that always has animals involved. And this one I particularly like just because of the symbolism with, you know, like basically man was a monkey before he ate the apple type of thing. And I thought that was really deep. And I always buy art when I'm traveling, but it's always for my mom because she's got a house and like I move around a lot. But this time I was like, oh, that's for me. This one's for me. So everybody, we're joined by the Freezes, Jim Freez and Chris Freez. So excited to have you both on. Jim is the organizer of ElixirConf, I hope this isn't offensive, but you're like one of the elder statespeople of the industry. Like you're like the Benjamin Franklin of the Elixir world. So we're super glad to have Jim on, and your son, Chris Freez, who's at all the conferences and as recently, I guess in the last several months, started a new job. I don't know if you're allowed to talk about it. Maybe we don't have to, but we're super.
Oh yeah, I can talk about it.
Well, so yeah, tell us about your new gig, Chris.
Yeah, so I was hired at PepsiCo e-commerce. I've been there for about a month now.
And it must be going well if you're here.
Well, I mean, this is just casual, you know, so I'm not going to be talking about anything that we're doing at PepsiCo e-commerce, but I can at least say that I work there.
Awesome. And where are you both calling us from? You look like you're in different places.
I'm in Prosper, Texas, up the Dallas area.
And I'm still in Austin.
Prosper, Texas. Does Texas do this on purpose? They just have all the best names of towns and stuff like that. Is that a thing?
That's a good town name, right? Going to prosper here.
Texas and the other good ones are in Pennsylvania.
Texas likes to steal names from European countries. We've got Paris, Texas, and also I always see Italy, Texas, driving from Dallas to Austin.
Italy, Texas.
Indiana has Peru, Texas. Indiana. There's like... that's the only one that pops into my mind, but there's definitely Indiana does the same. So it seems like a Midwest Southern, I guess, thing to do.
So we've been trying to be encouraging to people during this time. I think there's just a lot of like stress in general. So we're trying to bring people the good news, right? How are you guys making good use of the time? Have you picked up any new hobbies in this weird sort of stay-at-home environment?
I would say for us, it seems like this is just business as usual. Because I work from home anyway, so.
Yeah, I've been working remotely for pretty much the last 4 years. But I will say this, the gyms being closed has kind of put a wrench on a lot of my normal daily routines.
And what about the generalized psychic angst that hasn't impacted you guys? You haven't had to deal with that at all?
So my daughter and son-in-law are with us now. They were going to college and they shut down classes and they closed graduation. So they said there's no need to live in the college town, so they moved in with us. And so it's kind of fun. We do walks in the afternoon and cook dinner and have good family conversation. I'd say I've been doing walks every morning too, so because I can't go to the gym either. But it's kind of nice. I'm in meet my neighbors. I mean, it's like the first day of the shutdown. It's like, oh, everybody's here. I've never seen them before.
I can also confirm that our neighborhood has approximately 4 to 5 times the amount of walkers than normal.
Oh, yeah. Well, today is day 25 of the shutdown, right? So, 365 days in a year. It's only 25 days. Come on.
Yeah, walks are so hot right now. I've seen more people walking than ever before. I've seen, Eric said this, he's saw someone walking that looked like they had never went for a walk in their life or something like that. I was trying to picture what it would look like for someone to be like unaccustomed, I guess, to taking a walk.
What about? It's a good mental health thing, right? Put on some headphones or something and listen to a good podcast or something.
And also all the families walking together. It's really, really sweet to see. So you guys are both, inveterate workers from home. I'm curious, everyone's been giving tips and tricks, that kind of thing. We hear a lot of the same things, which I think is actually good because it reinforces it. I'm curious, what are your must do, must have items, tips, tasks for working from home?
I'm probably not the best person to ask because I imagine that a lot of the tips and tricks that a lot of people use, I just don't use at all. My main thing from working from home is that mini fridge right there. That's pretty much all I need, and I'm just good to go.
What do you keep in it?
Right now, I've got a lot of Mountain Dew Zero.
That's such a programmer, Mountain Dew. What about you, Jim?
Yeah.
I'm probably optimizing my energy. I'm doing a lot of that. So I've been doing, I don't know, it's nice to not feel like, oh, you got to get something done in a certain amount of time, right? Because I consider programming more like an Olympic sport, and instead of an hourly wage job. It's like if you're tired, if you can't think, right? It doesn't do you any good if you're sleepy or tired to try to code and solve a problem. So been basically maximizing my energy.
It's definitely inefficient.
It's crazy, right? It's like I was working on this problem last night. I was up till 2 a.m. and then I'm up at 8 a.m. this morning, back on solving the problem. It's like, hey, this is cool. I've never done this before.
I love this because Maggie, who was just on a few guests back, she said, you got to have a start time and a stop time. And I was like, yeah, my start time is when I wake up and my stop time is when I drop dead. What do you mean?
That's a good way to put it.
Definitely much healthier to be like, okay, every day at 6 o'clock, screen, I'm done. No, I just,
I know people that do that. I can't turn it off like that. Maybe I'm too OCD.
Yeah, and also sometimes there are just needs. We have a client who are just tearing out their whole search and replacing their whole search, and they needed it done by today. And I was like, I have to get this done, so I'm just going to stay up until it's done, and it's done, and here I am. So yeah, we want to give you guys the chance to sort of, Jim, you've got ElixirConf. I'm really curious, what's your outlook on this year for ElixirConf? This is a great time to sort of get out in front of it for the Elixir people. I'm curious, how are you thinking about it?
Oh, that's a tough question right now.
You can also dodge it.
I really want to have the conference, but the Gaylord's closed down right now.
Yeah. So
it's hard for me to sell tickets when the venue's shut down. And then we don't know what protocols we're going to have when it opens up, right? Are we going to have to be farther apart and have less density? I've got several sponsors already lined up, and we got PepsiCo's a sponsor, the Real Real's a sponsor, and DN Simple's a sponsor. But I really don't want to return money, right? So I don't want to collect it,
right?
But I will if I have to. So right now we're not going forward with our current contract because I don't think it's valid anymore, especially with the hotel being closed. But the hotel's not even talking to us because if your event is not 2 months out, they got to shuffle everybody they have, right? So it's some challenging times right now, very challenging. So I'm hoping for the best, and we hope to have a conversation with them at the end of April, and you can see on the Elixir radar that we're continuing, we're planning on it, but you won't know for sure until the tickets go on sale. If the tickets go on sale, it's going to happen.
So Todd has asked, will you do ElixirConf 2021 in Aurora if it doesn't happen this year?
So that's a possibility, right? To move. That's what they're doing with a lot of things, is they're extending it. So our option would be either just cancel it, just claim force majeure, and so we're not going back. I got another location I'm already looking at for 2021, but I haven't signed because they're shut down too. And so, and about 2 days ago, we just created ElixirConf V. So we're actually going to start running some virtual conferences.
Chris, are you helping out with that?
As much as I can.
Is there a website for ElixirConf V that we can send people to yet?
Not yet. We'll be selling tickets through probably ElixirConf and ElixirConf EU for starters. But I guess I better go buy that domain name. Huh?
Yeah, right this second.
Yeah. You've got about 5 minutes before someone has it.
So we're running out of time here. I want to give you all the last word. Jim, I just want to let you know we are rooting for you here. And keep us appraised. And if there's anything that we can do to support you, the Elixir community definitely stands behind ElixirConf. It's been great to us, and we'd love to be great back to you. Do you have any final plugs, asks for the audience?
We've just created a website called teslacarlot.com. And it's basically for users to sell and buy their Teslas, person to person and person to dealership. It'll be feature complete today. We'll probably launch it on Monday or early next week.
Oh my gosh, this is awesome. I had ordered a Model 3 and coronavirus hit like a couple of days before it was delivered. And so I was like, never mind. I'll take the $100 application fee and save the $60,000. Okay. And what about you, Chris? Any final app plugs? Ask for the audience. By the way, Chris, we'd love to have you on in season 4 if you'll be back on to talk about system architecture and application architecture.
Yeah, I'd love to be back on. Might have to confirm some things first, but yeah, definitely want to talk to you about that. Just support ElixirConf, support Tesla Carlot. And PepsiCo Ecom is hiring Elixir and React developers. So apply at Pepsi. They've got lots of really great people over there. I love David Romanian. I hope that pronounced right. Yeah, David Antirian, or I probably got his name wrong too. Sorry, David. He's a great guy. He's cool to have him on the show. Shout out, David. Hope you're doing well. All right, the Freezes. Thank you so much for being on. We want to do this again with you real soon, and stay safe out there in coronavirus land.
Thank you.
We were just talking about potential demise of interpersonal touch in our civilization. Dan and Beard says it's easy to measure the pros of stopping touching people. I imagine it's much harder to measure the detriment to society you might incur from removing human touch. Wise words from the audience, in my opinion. What do you guys think? Do you think that a year from now, no one will be shaking hands or giving each other hugs, and we'll just be like a bunch of atomistic automatons walking around wearing masks and hiding from the world?
I hope not.
It'd be like it'd be like me at Lone Star walking around. I was touching elbows with everybody because I was sick and didn't want to spread it.
I remember you were doing that, and the thing is, we knew about this at that point. Like I remember, like kind of thinking, like this might be one of the last things that we do together for a while. I'm really glad that we did it. It was just such a pleasure.
When I flew, I wore a mask while flying just because we were about to have a kid and did have a kid during Lone Star. So that was so I guess I also appreciate the elbow bumps, Amos.
Frank, how are you hanging in right now? Are you picking up any new hobbies or finding any new coping mechanisms?
I wish I could say I've been doing anything not work-wise. It seems like work has picked up at the moment, and certainly families at home. It's been keeping me busy.
Mm-hmm. Any tips for working from home with family around?
So you're asking the person who works from a windowless office in a basement. So I'm not quite sure my tips are applied to a lot of...
I'm also in a windowless office in the basement.
Oh, awesome. So then you understand how nice it can be to just totally be isolated from the rest of the world.
It's just always this bright.
Yes, always this bright, morning, night. No, it's pretty much, I guess work-wise, it hasn't switched too much from my normal state since I work from home down here. But certainly the ability to escape and take a break. I mean, I should say I feel grateful that my family's all healthy. So those things come first. But it definitely is a switch for now. It's a little bit stressful times too. Sure.
So work's picking up for you. Work has kind of been picking up for us too. How do you deal with it? Like when so many people are struggling out there, and especially like this seems like a Matthew principle type of thing where like, from whom those who have nothing, everything will be taken away. Those who have everything, more will be given. That's kind of how it feels to me right now. Are you struggling with that at all, or have you thought about it?
A little bit. I'd also point out there's a lot of stress. I mean, people are on edge. There are a lot of other things going on in people's lives that, we just have to work around at the moment. It's just putting up a lot more stress than work that, those of us who are in a position to kind of help out with that need to need to take a little bit extra time. So I'm not completely sure it's like the extra work, but more like just there's so much stuff going on and different things that we just have to accommodate right now that, that's been keeping me a little bit busier. Right now, I'm working on getting some stuff published at or built at a factory, which has been, kind of interesting logistically. So,
is that the smart rent devices or those?
Oh, yeah. So, we're getting them made in the U.S., but things are shut down and a lot. So, trying to figure out how to make things move forward, at least in some sense that's safe for everyone, is tricky.
Well, listen, we got a little bit of a late start here. I want to give you the chance to have a final word, any shameless self-promotion, plugging, anything you want to plug. I also want to ask you if you do me a favor and shame Justin Schneck for not responding to my email to come on the show.
Well, okay, I can do that for sure. But I'm going to plug something that he has a lot of involvement with. So this is live. So don't go out and tweeting about this yet. But it's live, so they can't keep it secret forever. The Nerves Project website looks a little nicer if you go to www.nerves-project.org. Justin,
so I have a complaint to register. My connection might not be private.
Oh, go to There are some bugs. That's why they probably told me not to publicize this too much. So among all of us, if you go to www.nervesproject.org and take a look, so Justin works at the consultancy now. Him and others they work with just done a beautiful job at updating the website. And there are a few things that we're going to add, in the coming weeks. Like, just been super excited that they've freshened up, the project.
The other thing is they need to set up the HTTP no www Nerves Project goes to a 404 page, not that. So
yeah, I think that might be my problem. Yes.
Well, Frank, thank you so much for coming on the Betweenisode.
Yeah, thanks for having me
back on in season 4 to talk about system and application architecture. So, we'll reach out to you for that shortly. I'm also going to sign off here so that a few more guests can join, and I'm looking forward to seeing Elixir, Wizards, and Outlaws Chapter 2 on the Betweenisode. Thanks a lot, Frank. See you later.
All right. See ya.
This has been part 1 of the Elixir Wizards Betweenisode. We will be back at you in a couple of days with part 2 of the Betweenisode. If you've enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe to the podcast wherever you are listening. And also, if you are so inclined, please follow us on Twitter. I am on Twitter at Justice Epen. Eric is on Twitter at Eric Ostrich. Elixir Wizards is a Smart Logic podcast. Here at Smart Logic, we are always looking to take on new projects, building web applications in Elixir, Rails, React, infrastructure projects using Kubernetes, and mobile apps using React Native. We'd love to hear from you if you have a project we could help you with. And join us next time for part 2 of the Elixir Wizards Betweenisode.